G'day and welcome back for more Survival Impossible. I noticed something odd while I was setting up for the start of this recording. It was that this place kept being low pressure. Even when I turned on the vent over in the corner there, it remained low pressure and cold in here. It was enough that I could open my helmet and breathe, but it was behaving like the air was being sucked out of that one, or that was coming out of that vent, and being sucked back into this one despite it being off. Well, it turns out it was acting like this was on depressurize even when it was off until I cycled it on and off again. So, in order to allow me to use this building as a pressurized space and a safe pressurized space, what I've done is change up my button controls here. Before, all I had a control on there was for this vent. Now, what I've got is a toggle on for the vent, a toggle off for that vent, and then a toggle on and off for the vent inside. That way I can come in, close this door, open this one, and if I don't get immediately high pressure and warm, then I know I've just got to play around with these until it happens, and then I can walk back in. Same deal when I close this door. If this doesn't go to negative pressure, or doesn't go to... close my helmet. That was dumb. If this doesn't go to that, with the no O2 and freezing, then I know I've messed up in here. So I can use that as a way to safely transit this airlock. I should probably get my health back first before I do that, because I really should have closed my helmet. Splitsie, good start. Good start. So my plan for today is to get this crane finished and go and collect that wreck. So it's time to get started on this crane. Well, there are a few problems with this crane. One, it's clangy, and I know why. So, let me see if I can explain why in a relatively succinct manner and with some degree of clarity. No. Did I just stick that on there? I'm going to have to get rid of that bit of the camera rig. So if we come around the back end here, the problem I have is that I was assuming that the rotor offset of 0, as you can see this rotor is set to an offset of 0, I was assuming that would give it the same dimensions as a standard block. That is not correct. Apparently, the correct rotor displacement is, if I go down here and type it in, 0.0088, or something around that margin. That should put it to 0, and that should make it minimally clangy. That's an option I could use to use the crane in it, to continue to use the crane in its current form. Though, what I'm going to do instead is start it from scratch again, which I know is a bit wasteful for resources, but if I get a crane that's working better in the long run, I think it'll be worth it. What I'm going to do is use a design that was suggested to me that makes use of an extra rotor to ensure that you don't have to worry about offsets at all. And I'll walk you through that once I've ground this thing down and set things up so that I can make it better. However, I do have another problem. Towards the end of the last recording, I was running a little bit low on iron, so hopefully this 4,000 iron will last me long enough to get through a little bit of what I'm doing. If not, I'm going to have to go for a mining trip. Let's get rid of this crane to start off with. Okay, so I've jumped ahead a bit of where I was before because I wanted to concentrate on building this and not mess it up. I still did mess up a couple of things and had to redo them, but we have the main functional part of the crane built with no risk of collisions that shouldn't happen, or almost no risk, and no offset issues because all the offsets are paired with an offset going back the other way or are attached in such a way that you've got 2 rotors attaching to the same 2 bits, which means the offsets match perfectly. What I've got down here are 4 rotors attached to the advanced rotor base. By putting 2 rotors in a line down here and attaching 1 bar which has the piston and 1 fixed bar, as I extend this piston, the end of that will go up. This rotor right here in front of me, it is locked. So this one up here is the main hinge, and then these other 2 are free spinning to allow this to happen. As it goes up, that all moves quite nicely, and there is no clang there because all of the offsets are correct. Now I've done a similar thing down this end, except instead of having the fixed bar and the piston on the same side, I've got them on opposite sides of the main beam. The reason for that is I want this to be able to stretch out to almost flat. So as this extends, you'll see that it stops. Where have I messed up? I must have messed up one of these rotors. They must still have a... Aha. Ooh, that was a bit risky to do that with the piston still pushing. So that rotor was locked. Oh no, something's not happy. I must still have one of the other ones locked.
Energy low.
I was prepped for this. Her. I've set up rotor limits on the 2 rotors that are attached here, but I may have set them up wrong. Let's just see if I have got any rotor locks still on. Rotor lock is off. Rotor lock is on. There we go. Now I can do this. Hopefully. So that'll extend out like that, and then... Ooh, no. Dang it! I've still got this wrong. This one must need to go from -90 to 0. Let's try that before I run out of power. Let's see if I've got it right this time. Come on, Splitsie, don't have it wrong again. Yes, that's right. Cool. So there you go. Because I wanted this, and if I hop down here, to be able to stretch out like that, I needed the piston on the opposite side, because you can see, if they were on the same side of the main beam, the fixed part and the piston part, I would end up with the piston colliding with that beam. So it works much better having them on opposing sides. Keeps everything nice and comfortably clear, while still looking alright actually, which is fortunate and surprising. And then at the end of that final piston that you can see that's kind of pointing outward at the moment, I'm going to put a little grabby arm with rotors in all 3 directions and a landing gear, so that it can manipulate that landing gear to whatever angle I need it for the piece that I'm trying to grab hold of. But rather than having that all in the way as I explained this, I thought I would explain what I'd done, and thank you, Laurie, for the advice in getting this set up, because it works really, really well. And it actually compacts down to something pretty neat looking, because it's all kind of in a nice little square once it's done. You can see here that this has come back down, and in this space that I've got here, I should be able to fit my little grabby arm, which is perfect. There we go. That is my little grabby foot thing. Neatly tucked into the space between all of these arms. We've got 3 pistons on the long arm to extend it, an extra piston on the shorter arm to extend it even further. So the reach of this crane should be pretty much everything I need it to be. Hopefully this will be a strong enough and versatile enough crane that I can use it around the base as well, rather than just using it to collect wrecks and bring them back to base. Hoping it'll be enough to pick up something like a basic refinery, that sort of block, that I can shift it around and move anything like that that might need moving that I don't want to waste all the resources for. Because I am getting very low on some things. I think I've only got a few iron boulders left to mine, so I'm going to have to go to stone, and that's going to make me a little bit more pressured in terms of resource management. I've built some fairly large structures with a lot of steel plate in them, and a few people had asked why I hadn't built these airtight hangar doors, and you can see you need 250 steel plate minimum for each segment. The new garage doors? What are they called? Door? I don't know. Let's pop them down and see what they're called. I don't know what this new big one's called. So these ones, the gates. Gates. These are not big enough for my purposes. So I can't use a gate for this, even though it would be a much cheaper way, despite the fact that it's still 600 steel plate. So that's why I haven't made this space airtight. That's why I built this without having looked after myself in that way. I simply don't have the resources to do it. And building this crane was something I wanted to do earlier because I want that drone so that I can scout out for some more resources. Now, there is another problem with this vehicle. Well, there are another two problems. One, Splitsie's an idiot and stuffed up the way this hitch works. It doesn't work like this. I remember doing something like this when I was working out the goose and realizing that I need to have the vertical rotation, or the vertical rotor, so the one that allows the hinging up and down, over the pivot point. Because otherwise, what happens is the front end is going to tip up, the back end is going to tip up, and this is going to hit the ground. So, I have a couple of ideas about how I might be able to solve this. I can, of course, try and move these rotors up and over to
Energy
here.
low.
Or I can put an extra set of wheels through the middle here. So an extra set on the rear. So we have 6 wheels on the rear and 4 on the front. That will solve that problem, I think, because the pivot point will be supported. And that's the main thing. It's that you need this pivot point for the up-down to have support so that it doesn't drop to the ground and so that it then just flexes upwards or downwards as it needs to conform with the terrain rather than gravity being the main reason that it's conforming to do anything. Or, you know, the weight of the vehicle, I should say. And gravity pulling it down. So I think I should be able to do that. I've also started thinking that I probably messed up the placement of these front 2 wheels. They are way too close together for me to be able to steer properly with this set. So I'm tempted to add an extra set of wheels to the rear here and an extra set of wheels to the front. Bring this out a bit further, clear myself enough so that I've got 6-wheeler on the front and then 6 wheels on the trailer. That way this thing is going to be capable of moving itself much, much better to start off with because it's going to have all that wheel power. I won't need thrusters or anything if this ends up weighing a lot. So I'm kind of tempted to do that. But I need to first check how much iron I have left. I had 4,000 when I started the crane, I now have 3,400. I think that should still be enough. 5 by 5 right on right there. It also supports right underneath the crane mount, which is, I think, a positive. I think that's the way to do it. We have that rotor working. I don't think it's going to be strong enough on its own. That's not rotor locked. Because I'm going to have to lift up that front end. Oh, it is. Excellent. Lift up the front end, because then if I weld up this rotor and the turning rotor, I can then get that out of the way. I can then get that straightened up so I can put the extra wheels in and be able to extend it out the front and put the extra set of wheels up there too. So one of the reasons I decided to support this hitch here instead of move it up the front was I was looking at it going, how would I merge block this so that I can move it? It doesn't look like it would be easy. So I think what I'm planning is the easier option. There you go, nice and square. That looks so weird. It looks like an angry spider rearing up. Kind of handy though. And the double rotor, even once I've built up the front, might be strong enough to lift up the whole thing. Yeah, that's enough clearance that it'll be able to steer. Cool, so we've gone from an 8-wheeler to a... Wait, 8 wheels? Yeah, 8 wheels to a 12-wheeler. I think that's possibly a good thing. One nice thing about this hitch arrangement that I think I'm quite pleased that I did unintentionally is that this crane can rest there.
Energy
Without
low.
having to rest over any of the functional stuff that I'm going to be putting up the front here. And now that I've got such a giant front end of this thing, I could probably fit in stuff like O2H2 gens, some basic bits and pieces that might become useful to help power this thing or help use it around the place. I'm not really sure what to put in there. I've ended up creating a monster that is far bigger than I intended to make. So either extend this out the front or move these wheels forward, and I think having the extra wheels is probably advantageous for something like this to keep it as stable as possible. I have to think about that, and if you guys have any suggestions about what I can use to fill up this massive hole that I've now got, I mean, I suppose in the future if I ever needed a much larger crane I could extend it out. That seems potentially unnecessary. I guess it could be. Anyway, if you've got any ideas of what I should put in there, I'm going to obviously have stuff on the front end of this, like more batteries, more hydrogen engines, an O2H2 gen, that sort of thing. But I can't think of other small grid stuff that would be particularly useful there. Right, all I need for this thing to be functional is a way for the wreck to be grabbed on the rear tray here, so that it doesn't end up
Energy low.
falling off, and a cockpit up the front. Then I should be able to go down and collect that wreck. That's what it's called. Don't know why I blanked on that word. Hopefully, looking at that, shouldn't be too long till it's daylight. I'd much rather pick up the wreck during daylight. Trying to do it at night doesn't fill me with much confidence in my abilities. Or my abilities don't fill me with much confidence to be able to do it at night. Either way, I want to say that. Where would I put a camera on here? I know this is distracting me from the building the cockpit thing, but I also know that if I don't do this right now, I am going to forget the camera. Perhaps something pointing right at where the landing gear is. So, which way would I want the camera to be? This is going to fold out, so I would want the top to be to my left, which means that, yeah, that way around, I think. Oh good, the camera doesn't stick through. It's only large grid, it does that. I don't know how useful this camera is going to be, but I think putting it on there makes some degree of sense right now anyway. Hopefully that orientation isn't horrible. I may have to readjust that thing because I'm really not confident I've got that around the right way. I think I do though. I think the horizon's going to be slightly upward, although it's all kind of, because it's facing down. I think it's right. I think it's right. I guess I'll find out, but well, I'll just feel I've already welded it up. So what I'm thinking with this industrial cockpit is to have it fairly raised up and sticking out the front, probably around that sort of height, and given that little angled bit at the bottom, leaving that as a gap through. So it'll be supported on two arms that come forward and supported at the back end only. Aha. I probably should have built this cockpit much earlier on, or at least something along it, since I could have easily put down a cockpit like this, put down a temporary vent, pressurized it, and I would have had an oxygen and power producing spot for me. But oh well. Do I want to go the temporary vent, or do I want to put an O2H2 gen on? The O2H2 gen, I don't think I want it to attach directly to this thing. Because I think, yeah, the whole thing will stick above, which I don't really want. So, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to put one of these down, and then I'll put a vent on the side of it. And that way, at least I'll be able to not suffocate inside the cab. Then what I also need is a programmable block somewhere so that I can run the subgrid wheel control script. And I'm going to try something which I meant to do on the Goofy but didn't get round to, which is putting a remote control block on the rear here and seeing if I activate its park brake if these wheels all lock down. Because I'd really like to be able to put the handbrake on rather than just turning the wheels off. Hopefully I won't be using this thing on any sort of slope where I need that to happen, but it's just a nice backup safety thing. how little iron I've got, I might just leave this to be just these landing gear and nothing else, in terms of the bed on the back, and later come back and greeble this and make it all pretty. Even though that upsets me to my very core, the idea of not doing it all now. I think it has to be done though. Well, I kind of want to get that drone up so that I can find more iron and not be worried about running out of iron. And if I use it all up on greebles, that will be slightly sad.
Energy low.
Now I have the fun task of naming every single block on this grid. Oy, just gonna take me so long. You'll probably see me back here in about half an hour. Maybe when the sun's up. Because I really do need to name all of the blocks so that I can control them properly from the cockpit. At some point I would like to get M-Arm OS working for the crane, but that's not going to be today. I'm thinking I will blueprint this thing once I've detached it from the base, take it into a new world, run it on stream and see what people can teach me as I slowly get the hang of how M-Arm OS works. Or if it comes to it, I will publish this on the workshop so people can write me the script if I get really that bad, but I'd like to be able to do it myself. Steering off. Alright, time to name it. 5 left. Well, I was right. The sun would be up by the time I was finished naming all those things. I think I've named everything. I've named all the wheels, I've named the cockpit, I've named the air vent, I've named all the rotors, I've named the grabber at the end, I've named the landing gear on the tray, I've named the batteries! And I did it all through Build Vision because it's so much better than doing it normally. And, I hate naming stuff. It's so tedious. But it is so important, and it'll be so absolutely necessary for the next bit, which is when I finally detach this from the base. And get myself ready to go down and pick up that wreck, because that's where I'm at right now. And finally there. Alright, good. With the two of them working in tandem, I can actually lift up this whole front end, which is fortunate, because I'm going to need to sneak some... I'll probably use these in so that I can smoothly drive over this segment, as they are the cheapest option I've got for filling in that gap, and I won't be able to place the airtight hangar doors since now my cockpit and everything overlies it all. And it's going to be so long before I build those, I may as well just fill this gap in for now anyway. Make moving in and out of the hangar a lot simpler. Right, well, let's turn these off, since they don't need to resist my movement anymore. And what I might also do is put a little bit of braking torque on both of them, as well as putting some braking torque on this twisting one. Oh, it's got some. And how about this one? Yeah, it's got some as well. Alright. Good. Toggle you off. Toggle you off. I'd like to have it so that there's a little bit of resistance to twisting so that it's not free flopping all over the place, but not quite as... not fully rigid, obviously. Should be right to detach now. The moment of truth. And I'm going to have to be underneath this thing to do it, which is not more than a little bit scary. 3, 2, 1, clang? Nope, all good. Yay! I didn't get my head squished. But I am going to need to strengthen the suspension on this just a tad. Which I'll probably do around the whole vehicle as well, so that it's not weirdly tipping. And there you go, you can see that even with those wheels we are still bowing a little bit about the middle here. So maybe the hitch isn't exactly right, but it's not too bad. Up in the cockpit. Oi, there is so much challenge in setting up the controls for this properly, but I think we are there. Let's move the Splitsie out of the way. Glad I made the Splitsie a bit simpler to control, because if I'd made it this way, I think I would have gone a little bit insane. Alright, Splitsie's out of the way. Time for the first test drive. Only the wheels I want steering are steering. They appear to be fighting something, so I can't turn. This is going to be quite a challenge, I think, to set this up so that it behaves as I'd like it to. Yeah, I might need to put some steer on those rear truck wheels just to get a bit more force on the steering effort. And I think I can probably go a little bit tighter on that too. But the crane is working. I mean, the truck's working. I don't know about the crane. We'll have to find out about the crane shortly. Let's head down. Ooh, no. Let's not head down. Let's turn off the turrets. Need to turn off the turrets, because otherwise I'm going to shoot this thing potentially when I come back. Let's go. Turrets off. Turrets are off. Now we can go and collect the thing using the daylight, and I will fiddle with my controls and stuff over time to try and see if I can make this work a little bit better, because it's very stiff. It does not like to turn. I'm sure I can improve that. I'm tempted to try and see if this thing can handle lifting that off the ground while not locked to the ground. I'm going to try and park myself in a position where I can hopefully be relatively level. That's probably good. How's that? Yeah, that's pretty level. Cool. Let's bring down Steve's camera, because I want this in time-lapse. Extend. Yeah. Off. Extend. Off. It's a bit wobbly and flexy there. Swivel rotor, this needs to have max and max and velocity of 1. So we can reverse it. May need to reverse up a little bit. I'm quite a long way away from this thing. Oh, I forgot some controls. Dang it. Extend. Track down a bit. This thing has a pretty good reach. Look at that. And then I want to stand that up a little bit. Stand that out a bit. And realize why I've got the camera on the other end. Now, camera. Well, this is going to be an interesting challenge to use. What happens when I do that? Oh, I appear to be colliding with the thing already. Let's bring myself up a little bit, so that will be extending that. This is kind of terrifying from this point of view. Let's turn you on, spin you around, and off, and on, reverse. That wobble. Oh, I'm so tempted to try this. Pistons. Let's make all of the pistons share inertia tensor. Rigid, make this thing a little bit more rigid. And rotors. I'm going to do the same with all except for you. see if that makes this a little bit more stable as I try and... Yeah, that's a bit better. There's a bit less wobble. Maybe. Oh, it's that arm there. Okay. So the distal hinge. Hinge, distal rotors. Let's put some braking torque on them of, say, 1500. That might just stop a bit of that wobble as well. Aha! We have lock. I'm locked. I can now get out of that view. And the moment of truth. Can I lift this thing? Want that on extend and on. Oh! No, I can't. It is too heavy. Okay, that's what I thought might be the case. Let's get some controls on this bar for the wheels. It's crane trailer wheels. Increase height offset. Decrease height offset. And the locking gear, where is it? That one. Switch lock. There we go, locked. Now we can extend that piston. There we go. It may be the case... Oh. That's a lot of wobble! Oh boy. It may be the case that once the truck gets heavier, as long as I'm not at full reach, I don't need the landing gear to lock, but boy am I glad I put that on there. Let's retract the arm down a bit. This is why I've got that multi-directional, almost 6 degrees of freedom, like the really complex manipulating grabber on it, because I need to get a flat surface so I can lock this down to the tray landing gear. Locked to the tray and unlock the crane. Swivel the crane out of the way. Collapse it down and we can drive home. And I even did it before I ran out of food and water. That is super complicated to control, but dang, I love it. Love it anyway. Look at that. Picked it up. I've got it on my truck. Let's roll out. I think I'm glad I went for the extra wheels rather than trying to rearrange the wheels or the hitch. They're probably going to come in handy at some point in the future. I am super happy with this thing. Super, super, super happy. As I have the drone back at base. Then I should be able to, with this crane, if I park in the right spot, reach inside the hangar and put this drone down somewhere that it can be worked on inside. Cool. I brought it home! Yay! Oh man. I'm gonna go get some food and some water before I run out. Am I gonna have enough roof clearance to do this, or am I gonna have to... I think I might have to drive out forwards a little bit before if I'm gonna try and poke this inside. I suppose I could always have it hanging off the back and then kind of drive backwards into the garage. That might be a smarter way of doing this. Slightly terrifying, but also, given the roof clearance, probably the only way I can manage to pull it off. So, it was deliberate that I detached the crane and collapsed it down because I was worried that having 2 landing gear with subgrid rings attaching back to the same thing would cause clang, which is why I didn't move until I'd detached it. But now I'm going to have to go and reverse that whole process of collapsing the crane now that I'm back home. Obviously, for one of the uses I've got in mind for this crane truck is bigger pieces of wreckage from, say, cargo ships I shoot down, that sort of stuff. There might be some nice, big, juicy bits of stuff that I can collect with that, so this crane truck should be able to take a fairly hefty load. Let's get that gear back locked on and lifting this thing off the rear of the truck. My hope is I can get this into a position where I can pop a little rotor on and a little rotor part on this and snap it to the base so that anything I build onto it will charge, much like everything else. I do wonder how safe this is going to be. Or unsafe. Having this dangling off the back. Oh. Hold up. No. I might just leave this dangling off the back for now rather than stick it in the hangar just yet. Because I've still got the other Goofy 2's trailer on the other connector. So if I'm going to go and mine some stuff, I'm going to want to have this connector free so I can quickly offload. Rather than having to do a trailer shuffle, which I really don't want to do. So I might just leave this dangling off the back. For now, feels relatively safe. Let's see what happens when I drive with it there. Bounces a little bit. Let's just... So that's a thing. Extend. Let's lift that up a bit higher. So I don't whack it on the ground. Yeah. I'm going to park here. I'm going to go and collect some more iron. And then at the start of next time I'll try and hook this up to the base. I don't think we need to hang around while I do this iron mining. I'm going to put that into the time lapse. Next time we should be able to get onto building that drone. If you've got any ideas about a name for this new crane truck, because it's likely to hang around for quite some time since it has certainly performed as well as I could have hoped. The controls are incredibly complex, but I have mostly got my head around them, I think. So yeah, name for that. Mine some iron. Get the drone inside and start designing how I'm going to set it up so that I can go out and hunt for some more ore boulders without having to drive miles and miles and miles and maybe even look for an ice lake. This is all that, and plenty more to come. And we'll see you guys then. Steve, where are you? You need to come.